Good morning. You're watching Chitkara TV and I'm your host Rishamreet. Welcome to our special bulletin. The Waqf Amendment Bill and thereafter the Waqf Amendment Act of 2025 has been the topic of hot discussion and debate for the last few weeks. Joining me today on the panel are three panelists, Ms. Saanchi, Ms. Aarushi and Ms. Toshani. Let's dive into the discussion on the act. So let's start with the basics. Saanchi, can you explain what the Waqf Amendment Bill is all about?
Sure, Mr. Rishamreet. So, Waqf Amendment Act has now been updated and majorly has some points which have been updated. Number one being the inclusivity of women. Now, the Waqf Amendment Act says that it is essential to have the inclusivity of 2 women members in the board. Along with that, the inclusivity of minority Muslim communities like Shia, Sunni, Bohra, that too happens to be of a compulsion now. And Waqf by user has been removed now. Before that, I'd like to give a background into it. Waqf by user means that all the properties that were just being preached as mosques or whatsoever were falling under this category. And now it has been replaced and the control is being given to the district collector as to his decision would be at the end taken as compulsion as this is the correct one. After that 90 days has been allotted as the time period for which the properties and all the disputes associated to them can be taken in the High Court. Along with that, it is essential for users to follow the religion of Islam for at least 5 years to have a say on Waqf.
So that is a good introduction. Thank you, Saanchi. Let's move on to Toshani. Toshani, what I want to know from you is, what are the key features of the Waqf Amendment Act of 2025 and how does it differ from the Act of 1995?
So I think Ms. Saanchi has already explained that question in a pretty good way. What she just mentioned were the key features of the most recent Amendment Act. I would just like to summarize them for you once. So first is obviously the inclusivity, as Saanchi has already talked about, the inclusivity of women, the inclusivity of minority communities and the inclusivity of non-Muslim members when it comes to the decision making and property disputes. That has been amended. Secondly was the concept of Waqf by user, which has been now repealed. And third is the fact that government interference has, not just interference, I think government control has increased a bit to make the system a bit more transparent and a bit more effective. So these are the major key points, and I think Saanchi has already explained them quite a bit.
Okay, thank you, Toshani. We'll move on to our next panelist, Aarushi. For the benefit of the audience, can you just tell them what is the impact of this act on the minorities, their rights, and how much the government interference has increased in the current act?
Yeah. So it has been seen that government interference has increased for transparency, and but it has impacted the minority as there are many articles that ensure that minority rights are they have been there so that they won't be restricted or would be eroded. So it erodes it because people who practice their religious practices, they would be affected by it, and it has been seen that many lands of the Waqf is used for the good of people, like for the hospitals and schools and everything. So it will affect them as well because people now would ask for the.
Okay, thank you, Aarushi. Yeah. We'll move back to Saanchi. Saanchi, any bill or any act which the government passes has some certain objectives. So what, in your opinion, are the objectives, the main objectives of the government with the Waqf Amendment Act of 2025?
I think the major and the foremost objective of the government is getting control, because in the recent act, it has been said that the district collector would be having the say on it. Along with that, the Comptroller Audit General two would be having the say on it. On contrary to that, there are many countries like Kuwait, Turkey, and so many others who follow a different set of principles when it comes to the governance. But in India, I believe it's the government that wants the control, because recently I read about it that in Patiala, there was a debate and an educational institute which was being said that it comes under Waqf. But when the research was carried out, it was said that it's not. So now, due to the Waqf by user, it has been taken back.
Okay, thank you, Saanchi. Aarushi, I'll come back to you. Now, a lot of people in the audience or our audience do not know what is the definition of Waqf. Can you just tell us what was the definition of Waqf in the Act of 1995 and what changes have been made in the Act of 2025?
So according to Waqf in 1995, it was seen that any property that has been donated in the name of religious practice would never be, they can't take it back. It would be donated once and for all, and they cannot, take it back or do anything about it. It would be donated for every time. But now it has been seen that there are some changes, some serious changes that has been made. Like anybody who does not practice Islam for less like 5 years could not donate their lands, and the inclusion of women and minorities have been increased, and women government inclusion has also been increased to make it more inclusive and to increase transparency that it was, because it was before it was controlled by the Waqf board, but now it's centralized.
Okay, Aarushi, I'll just carry on from the answer what Aarushi has answered. Can you explain the concept of once a Waqf and always a Waqf?
Right. So, as Aarushi has said, there's a concept which says once a Waqf, always a Waqf, which basically means that once any property has been donated for religious practices, and once it becomes Waqf, you cannot take it back. So let's say there's a person who has donated all of his property in the name of God or in the name of religion. If his son or his daughter or anyone of his next generation family wants to appeal for it to get it back, it was almost impossible for them to get it back. And again, there was the concept of Waqf by user. If a property was being used as Waqf property for religious practices for a long time, it was automatically considered Waqf without any registration. So that is what the concept basically means, that if once a property is declared Waqf, there is no way for people to get it. There was no way for people to get it back, though it has been changed in the recent amendment.
Okay, thank you, Toshani. Ladies and gentlemen, audience today comprises of bachelor students of Chitkara School of Mass Communication. I'm sure the answers of the panelists will give them some pointers to ask certain pointed questions, certain questions which will enhance our knowledge. So I will hand over to the audience to start asking questions. And before you do ask the questions, unlike the Waqf Amendment Act, you have no restriction of language. You can ask in Hindi, English or Punjabi, whichever language you are comfortable. So let's start.
Hello, so my question is open to all, and my question is, how does the bill address the issue of irrevocability of Waqf properties?
As I've already discussed, so the concept of once a Waqf, always a Waqf was there in the past version of the Act. However, right now that is not the case. Now the property which is disputed can actually be challenged. There's one more certain point which says that in normal cases, any disputed property, especially if it's encroached by the government, can be questioned for within 12 years. However, there was only a 90 days period time for Waqf properties for them to be questioned. So that has also changed, and now it is much more easier to dispute the properties. So the irrevocability that you talk about is it is much more easier for people to get their lands back.
Thank you.
That's such a knowledgeable answer from Toshani. Thank you. Any more questions?
So my question is, what role the central government play
in regulating the work of property. So my question is open to everyone.
The objectives or the control or the role that central government plays in regulating the Waqf properties, number one again has to be the inclusivity of women and minority communities, because at the central level you have to think of the nation as one and have to include all the major sectors and the minor categories of the nation again. So like when we talk about minority communities, now the Waqf Amendment Act includes that the inclusion of Shia, Sunni, Bohra, all of them is essential. Along with that, inclusivity of at least two female candidates too is important. That again highlights the norms of gender equality. So I think that would be the answer from my side. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree, Saanchi. I think the inclusivity of the genders is a very important aspect in today's world. Next question, please.
Hi all, my question is that how will the bill ensure the representation of Muslim women as well as all other like non-Muslim people too? My question is open for all of you.
It has been made clear that it is necessary for women to be represented at the Central Council and as well as the state boards, so that it would be, necessary for women to step up and work for their rights.
All right, thank you.
I would like to add on to it a little bit. Being somebody from a particular gender, you happen to understand the problems in a better way. So I think that's the most essential reason for the inclusivity of women into this act, because somewhere or on the other angle, it's important to think about a topic in every possible way. So that's why.
So my question is, what are the implications of collecting voters to conduct surveys, and how do they are resolving the ownership disputes?
Now the
I think your question is, let me just clarify, I think your question is regarding the collectors,
Yes,
how
right,
the bill empowers the collectors, the deputy commissioners as we know them, how it is empowering it to take decisions for the Waqf board. Yeah, please.
Right. For that, now digitization is also being done. So now there's a specific portal about which people are being given knowledge, and apart from that, the control is being shifted from the Islamic angle to the district collector, wherein the last say would be in the hand of government again, because now the governance and the authority is being given control rather than the members of the Waqf.
Okay, before I come back to the audience again, I have a few questions for the panelists. So we'll start with Aarushi. Toshani, I beg your pardon. Can you please discuss the potential implications of this bill, whereas the government oversight is concerned?
Sure. So up until now we've been discussing the goods of it, but when it comes to any major controversial, especially act or bill, there are always pros and cons, controversies and compliments alike. So there are some points when it comes to the government interference, especially in regards to the fact that Muslims happen to be minorities. The people who practice Islam happen to be the minorities in this country. So for a long time, the entire system was being governed by Islamic law, and suddenly there's a lot of interference when it comes to whether it's the property disputes, whether it's the service collected. There's a lot of government interference in that. So on one hand, it would increase transparency, it would increase in accountability. Both of those facts are absolutely true. There's no denying in that. But there are few points that could lead to the negative of it as well. Like there might be a lot politicization of this topic, where certain government parties could potentially politize this issue a lot, and it could also be used as a measure to suppress the minorities in this country.
So, Aarushi, as an offshoot to or as a corollary to what Toshani has answered, how do you think this act is going to affect the relationship between the government and the minority communities?
It will affect it because it could be, depending on the person's perspective, it could be positive and negative because every coin has the two sides. So some people would say it, take it as a action taken by government to have control over their rights, but people, somebody would take it as, to make it more, inclusive and to make it more equal to the people. And it was seen that recently that people have lost their property because of Waqf, even though they were not, donated as Waqf. In Rajgarh, 600 families lost their land because of it. So it would, help people to understand, and it would make the process more easier and more, refined.
Okay, my one question to Saanchi before I move on to the audience. You have studied in detail the Waqf system in India and the other Islamic countries. Can you tell us what is the main difference between the Waqf system which we follow here in our country and what is the system which is being followed in the Islamic countries of the world?
Sure, I would like to answer that with my knowledge. So in India, now the major control is being given to Comptroller, Auditor General, in short to the government itself. But when we talk about other Islamic countries, for example Kuwait, the control is given to government and the private entities both. On the other hand, when we talk about countries like Malaysia, again an Islamic country, there are separate Islamic institutions or councils that handle the says on Waqf. And when we talk about Turkey, there are specific agencies like Directorate General of Foundations who happen to control the Waqf. So I think out of all the countries, I believe the best according to me would be again the one that has been recently flourished in India by our central government.
So we move back to the audience again.
Hi, so my question to you is, can you discuss the compositions of the Central Waqf Council and the State Waqf Board? My question is open to all.
So Waqf is going to operate at two levels, of course, as you said, state and central. More or less the composition is same at both the levels. It's just necessary to have two non-Muslim members and two women members on both state and central level. The objectives for having this type of inclusivity could be different for the two, but on a wider scale, the composition remains same.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my question to you all is, what do you think are the long-term possible effects of this new amendment, and do you think they are mostly negative or positive? It's an opinionated question.
Yeah, I would like to take that. So again, as I've already said, every controversial act has negative and positives both. I personally believe that it would, in the long term, have more positive effects. First of all, as Aarushi has already said, that there would be a lot of people who would not who have already lost their properties, which have been unjustifiably taken as Waqf. So there would be a much more regulated system when it comes to the surveys and when it comes to the declaration of properties. There would be a much more transparent system. There might be some drawbacks to it, like as we all know, anything that includes bureaucracy always has the red tape concept on it. It always has delays in it. So bureaucratic delays might be there, and again there might be some mistrust between the government and the minority community of Islam or Islam practices. So those things will definitely be there, but overall I think it has increased the transparency a lot, it has increased the accountability a lot. So more or less it would be a positive, it is a step in the positive direction, I think.
Okay, thank you.
So my question is, what are the concerns regarding the constitutional validity of the Waqf Act? Anyone can answer.
So I take that again. So there's the concept of right to equality, right to religious practices, and right to religion. So religious practices as in practice your religion and propagate it, and then there's the right to follow any religion. These are the three major concerns when it comes to the constitutional part of it, कि इसमें क्या problem आ सकती है. So equality as in when something which has been governed by the Islamic law for such a long time, something which is considered inherently Islamic, उसमें अगर हम सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट की इंक्लूजन बढ़ा रहे हैं तो देयर माइट बी सम ड्रॉबैक्स टू इट एज वेल. सो फॉर श्योर दैट conversation is there, but personally again I think that waqf is an Islamic issue, but it is just as much a property issue. And while religion, keeping the religion aside, property anyhow should be regulated by the government. So I hope that answers your question.
Before the act came into being, it was presented as a bill, and even before that there was a joint parliamentary committee which was set up to discuss the Waqf Amendment Bill. Aarushi, can you throw some light on what all discussions, what all decisions, and what all happened in that joint parliamentary committee?
Yeah, there was a lot of discussion about what to, do and what steps that they should take in what direction, so that it would ensure that it is, in the benefits of all. So the one question was the inclusivity of women and the people and the non-Muslim people, although they think that it would undermine the Muslim and their whole community, but it won't, because as in India we are living, and it is necessary for every person to have a say in this. So yeah, it would be, these are the main discussion points that was going on.
Okay, thank you, Aarushi. One last question to Saanchi before we start summing up our today's program. There have been certain criticisms from within the country and outside the country regarding this act. What are those criticisms, and what is your opinion about those criticisms?
Of course. So this discussion too is quite a debatesome topic and has both positives and negatives. It just depends about the kind of community you belong to. For example, when this bill was introduced and was being talked about, the AIMIM chief, Asayuddin Owaisi, was quite against the bill, which is of course because he belongs to Islamic religion, and majorly people from this religion have criticized this because it somewhere is taking the control back from them, giving to the central government, especially in a country like India. It has to be a hot topic. But then it was taken by Amit Shah, and in the parliamentary session he said that कानून भारत सरकार का है, इसे मानना पड़ेगा. These were the exact words and lines that he said. So I think it gives quite a necessary angle how this would go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we end our program, we would like to know the opinion of the audience and the panelists about the Waqf Amendment Act of 2025. Aarushi, what is your opinion about the act? Your generic and your wide opinion.
Okay. For me, I think it is a step in a positive direction. It is necessary because, it's necessary for people to have, knowledge about their land and everything. So it is a good step that has been taken. As I've already said that in Rajgarh, 600 families lost their land because of Waqf. Although they have never denoted it, and it was already been, taken by the Waqf. So it's a good step that government is taking some actions so that everybody would have a clear view of what is happening with their land and what is not.
Aarushi, how do you view this act?
In media we use a term called reasonable restrictions, and I think it quite well applies to this act as well. There needs to be a sense of restriction when it comes to issues like property, which actually some people's entire life savings are related to those properties. So some sort of central restrictions, reasonable restrictions were important, I think that those have been introduced now. So it's definitely a step in the right direction.
Saanchi, your thoughts?
Sure. So in a country like India, I would like to cite a fact here that Waqf had the third highest number of property with themselves after Army and Indian Railways. So that somewhere makes us question the fact that how were such illegal properties being given to them. So I think that shed some light on the importance and necessity of this act, which was of quite importance, that has been enacted now. So I am in favor of it.
Thank you, Saanchi, Toshani and Aarushi for your insightful discussion on the subject. I'm sure our audience would be better educated with this knowledge. So thank you once again, and we hope our viewers have gained a better understanding. Until next time, goodbye.